Back with us on the SportsMax Zone, English-based players Ravel Morrison and Bobby Reid are reporting good vibes in the Reggae Boyz camp ahead of tonight's World Cup Qualifier away to El Salvador at the Estadio Cuscatlán in San Salvador, the capital city. Morrison, who plays for English Championship side Derby County, says the players, English-based and local, are mingling. Meanwhile, Reid, who has featured prominently in this campaign, says the objective is to get 3 points. He was asked to compare the vibe in the team earlier in the campaign to the mood now. This is what he said.
Different mindset. I think we know what we need to do to win games, and there's a sole focus on doing that. Everyone's come together and we've spoken. We've come to a focus of how we're going to play and sticking with it. First and foremost, you have to fight. You've got to match their intensity, match their hard work, and I think if we do that, I think we've got more than enough quality to come out on top and get a result.
That's Bobby Reid. Well, both Jamaica and El Salvador enter the game on 5 points. That's 3 behind Panama, who occupy 4th place. The team finishing 4th in this group will enter a playoff against a team from another confederation for a berth at the Qatar World Cup. So you could call 4th place almost a half place. Panama will play away to bottom place Honduras as we look at the other fixtures. 3rd place Canada host Costa Rica, while in the clash of the round, leaders Mexico travel to the TQL Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio to face fierce rivals United States, who sit 2nd in the group. Now the Reggae Boyz secured 4 points from their last 2 games, and in their last match, a 2-0 win away to Honduras on October 13. Head coach Tapa Whitmore did not have Leon Bailey, did not have Michael Antonio, and did not have Ravel Morrison in his squad. This is the 11 that did the bulk of the work in that game. He started with Nicholson and Roof up front, Flemings wide on the left, Grant and Williams, the policeman, in the middle, Fisher on the right in that wing-back role, Lawrence, Lowe, Watson, Mariappa, helped by Fisher on the right side of the fence, and the captain, Andre Blake. He wore the gloves as per usual. So, with the big three, his big three back in the squad, how does Whitmore go about fitting them in for the El Salvador clash? Well, we've asked for expert assistance with this and other questions, and Brent Sancho joins us to discuss which players should start and what formation Whitmore should use. So, Brent, with those 3 on hand, fit and ready, if you were Whitmore, how would you set up the starting 11 today?
Well, before I answer that question, music to my ears listening to Bobby Reid, of course, this brings back memory for me in the 2006 when we qualified in 2005. And I spoke to a lot of the teammates because we're getting near to that anniversary, George, when we qualified in Bahrain. And one of the things that we spoke to Stern and a couple others, is remembering what Leo Ben Hacker said back then. And he talked about instilling a mentality. It was not so much about systems and the way we played. It was a lot to do with the way you approach football games. And Bobby Reid hit every single note that we spoke about back then. However, we have to look at what has been successful for Jamaica. And I think the 2 pivoting number 6 in the terms of Grant and Watson in particular in the middle of the park, I think is essential for whatever success they are going to have. And I want to start there when we start building out the way Jamaica should approach this game. I think Grant and Javon Watson is, as I said, is pivotal to any success they're going to have in San Salvador tonight.
It's easy to talk tactics and blame coaches for what you perceive to be tactical deficiencies, but extremely hard to train to play a certain way and to execute that because of the simple fact that the other team is training to scupper what your plans are. So it's very difficult. But given that we know that Javon Watson's, the weakest part of Javon Watson's game is his passing. And, it frustrates me at times, Brent. He's very good at winning the ball. I mean, he's the best ball winner in the side, in fact, in my mind.
Yes.
He closed down spaces ferociously, better than any other player we have. But when he wins the ball, it's almost as if he has a brain freeze. So, if you know that one of your midfielders has this limitation, would you not perhaps then ask your team, your attacking players at least to play closer. Where the triangles that you pass become even smaller. Triangle, right? Here you go. Right. The triangles become smaller. So rather than be faced with a 10-yard pass when he wins the ball, it's a 3-yard pass. He shifts the triangle around to get it. Would that not be the way you think Whitmore would practice to make up for this glaring weakness in an important sector of the field?
Yeah, it's called game awareness, and without that, and as you rightfully said, you have to know as we say in any football game, whether you're playing small goal or whatever, you talk about knowing your players and knowing who's around you, and I think you're correct in what you're saying. And, I'm going to say something here that most Caribbean fans will not like to hear. The fact is, us here in the Caribbean, we are never going to shade it when it comes to possession of the football. That is not something we do well when it comes to this particular segment of qualifying. I'm talking about the last phase, whether you call it the hex or whatever it was. We don't possess the ball longer than any other team. What are we good at? We are good at being athletic, we're good at being physical, we're good at set plays, and we're good at individualism. And Jamaica has to understand that. It's the same thing Trinidad and Tobago had to understand in 2006 when we rode the back of Stern John and his prolific goal scoring. It's the same thing that Jamaica has to understand in this. Physically, athletically, individualism, you have that potential, but you have to defend resolutely. You have to make sure that you don't give up silly chances. You have to make sure you close the football down. You have to make sure that from a defensive standpoint that you don't give up any goals. And I think if Jamaica goes into this game believing that they don't concede, they will score. And that is, for me, the most important thing in this exercise is coming out with 3 points.
So here's my last question to you in this segment, Brent. If Whitmore starts a team that goes on to lose this game, and he doesn't start Bailey, Morrison, and Antonio, the world is going to fall on his shoulders, saying that he's a madman, he's a fool for not starting 3 players who are fit and well and who are playing at such a high level. With that in the back of his mind, your mind, would you be tempted to start with Bailey, Morrison, and Antonio against El Salvador a few hours from now?
No, I wouldn't. And I'll tell you why. It's really very, very simple. El Salvador, from a team, their best players are their wing backs. And so you need people that is going to work. I would start Leon Bailey. I would start Bobby Reid on the flank. And I would start Nicholson up front because he's done well. I would not start Antonio. Certainly would not start Antonio. And I would not start Morrison because I don't think he has that discipline within the team concept to start this football game. And it's not taken away from the talents that they have, but you have to understand this is a national team. This is not club football. Tapper Whitmore has had very limited time with his charges. He has to go what is tried and proven. Many people would want their players to start, but this is a crunch game. To me, George, if they lose this game, I think that's the end of their campaign. I honestly believe so. So for this game in particular, he has to go what's tried and proven. And I just feel that he has to go with the charges that has done it for him before.
Yeah, and Brent, as we look ahead to this big match tonight, which is very important for the Reggae Boyz, what would you say has been the weaknesses of the El Salvador team, and how can the Reggae Boyz use it to their advantage?
I did a lot of watching, knowing I was coming on this segment, watching some game tape of El Salvador. And you know what, right? It is glaring. Their wing backs, as I said, is their strong points, but it's also their weak points. A la Liverpool, they have loads of space between their fullback and their centre halves, and Mexico exploited that beautifully, and of course went on to win that game 2-0. And if Jamaica is to be successful, again coming back to the likes, of Leon Bailey and of course of Reid, they have to be successful when they get the ball. They have to be useful. They have to make sure that they create this sort of damage that Mexico created against El Salvador for Jamaica to be productive. And I think that point of it, if Jamaica goes in understanding that fact of it, and again, they have a role to play defensively, both Reid and Bailey, but I think offensively, more importantly for Jamaica to win the game, they have to be on their front foot.
Yeah, well, Brent, we are going to take a quick break, but we have to continue this discussion because it's a match, a mouth-watering match, and a match that the Reggae Boyz are depending on for 3 points. We'll be right back to continue.
Back with us on the SportsMax Zone, the Reggae Boyz limbering up for this crucial clash against El Salvador. There is everything riding on a result at the stadium in San Salvador if the Reggae Boyz are to realize their dream of going to Qatar 2022. Brent Sancho is with us, looking at how Theodore Whitmore uses the resources at his disposal, the player resources. He says he would avoid the temptation of playing Bailey, Morrison and Antonio from the start. In fact, as far as Brent Sancho is concerned, that's not even a temptation for him. Analyzing the strengths of El Salvador, it would not be useful for Whitmore to start those three players because he can exploit El Salvador in other ways. Mariah, you were carrying the question in before we went to the break.
Yeah, Brent, so the fact that you would not be tempted to include what we would like to say, the top three players from the Reggae Boyz, Ravel Morrison is a player that we like to talk about. He contributes to strengthening the Reggae Boyz midfield. If we don't start with Ravel Morrison, talk to us about the midfield and the strengths of it without Ravel Morrison.
Look, I go back to what I said at the start, and most Caribbean people don't like to hear this. You're not going to possess the ball. That's just the nature of it. We in the Caribbean, our football, when it comes up to this level, we don't have a whole host of possession. And because of that, because of most of our game is dealt with closing players down, it's dealt with the defensive responsibilities, it is dealt with being disciplined, it's making sure that you're resolute, making sure that you're not beaten. You have to put the players in there to make sure that is a big part of what you do. So for me, yes, Ravel Morrison is probably a better footballer than Watson and Grant put together. However, his attributes is not what you need in El Salvador. You need the attributes of Grant and Watson. As George was saying about Watson, he's arguably probably the best in CONCACAF at closing on the ball. I'll go that far to say. And that's what you need, because at the end of the day, that is what the game is going to be about. It's not going to be about pretty passes. And I hear a lot of people, even in this campaign for Jamaica, talking about a creative player. A creative player to do what? You don't have to football. So you have to be able to defend, you have to be able to be disciplined, and more importantly, you have to take your chances when you get them.
Yeah, Brent, we've talked about Javon Watson in the midfield, but we have to remember that the last game, because of some injuries and issues that what Whitmore had, he actually started at central defence. Now, we have Liam Moore here again. There is Alvis Powell fit again. Gregory Lay, another flank defender. How does that make things difficult for Whitmore to set his defence lineup? Because paramount for the Reggae Boyz tonight is that they're not scored against. Obviously they want a win, but I think to shore things up at the back, he would want to ensure that he starts a defence setup that is airtight.
Yeah, and I think he would go with partnerships. And I think if we were to be honest, I think the Lowe and Mariappa partnership seems to be the one that works best for Jamaica, and more so because I think both complement each other in a particular way. I would have loved to see Pinnock in this squad because I think he's an outstanding defender, irrespective. But I think from a partnership perspective, and when you talk about centre halves, again, I go back to Trinidad and Tobago. Maybe Dennis Lawrence and Marvin Andrews were not our best centre halves, but from a partnership perspective, they did terrifically well. And I think this is similar when it comes to Lowe and Mariappa. I think from a win-back perspective, that's where Jamaica has found some of their troubles. And yeah, it's something that they have to fix. But I think what has worked, what Tapper is comfortable with, is Lawrence. And I think Fisher would play it right back. Yeah, Lawrence had left.
As recently as a couple of days ago, I expressed on this show my sympathy to the job that coaches have. Because I hear you, Brent, suggesting that Javon Watson would be in your starting lineup tonight. If Whitmore starts him and he doesn't play well and the Reggae Boyz don't get the result they want, this 38-year-old, I think Whitmore would be on a lot of pressure if his plan fails, given the fact that he has so many options outside of Javon Watson.
I hear what you say, but I mean, you guys have watched a lot of football, and in particular Jamaican football. But let's be honest in the Caribbean, and that's my point. We do not possess the football at this level for long periods. And as I said, for me, you need people that could close the ball down. When I look at the Panama result in the office, a lot of it was down to that fact. Jamaica tried to do something that they are uncomfortable in doing. That's not them. That's not the skin that they wear. And because of that, they were severely exposed. And we have to be honest, whether it's El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, when you get to this level, and we saw it in the World Cup, possession of the football is paramount to having a certain type of players, etc. We don't create those type of players in the Caribbean. We don't have them, and our players are almost scared to get on the football. So what do? Do you force a Morrison into the middle of the park? Do you force someone in there that is going to ask to the ball? But the other players, as George was mentioning, are not going to even move for him or even going to want to show for it. So you have to know, as they say in football, horses for courses. And this is as brutally honest as I could be, because at the end of the day, people love to see the best players play. But the Caribbean is not the best team. The Caribbean teams are not the best team in CONCACAF. The best teams possess the ball for long periods and dominate football games through possession. We don't have that in the Caribbean, and we have to understand our limitations.
I have not a fear, Brent, but there are some misgivings I'm having about the game and the likely performance, and more importantly, the result. Here's the thing. We know that at club level, partnerships between individual players are what makes teams good. Make no doubt about that. The partnership between left back, left winger, or midfielder on the left, on the right, those partnership between a central striker and midfielders, those telepathic understandings, a forward knowing that he sees a central defender posturing a certain way, he knows the centre half is going to go over the top trying to bypass everybody and hit him on the run. These partnerships are crucial. I'm wondering, given, if we look at the team that got that point against Canada at the office, and then look at the team that beat Honduras away, those were different teams with players in makeshift positions, especially in the Honduras team. Now with so many quality players in the squad, so many players back and fit, I'm wondering, Brent, how those partnerships on the field will serve the Reggae Boyz today, given that you have still some players who, even though they may have trained with the squad, have still not integrated. You're a man who came from international duties from club football to international duties with new players some of the times. How does Whitmore plug that chemistry gap, that partnership gap?
And again, as I said to you, our anniversary for Trinidad qualifying is November 15th, and had some conversations with the boys. And, you mentioned partnership, and something that really struck me in the Bahrain game, and I know we're discussing Jamaica, but Russell Latapi, as all you guys know, is a phenomenal player. But he just never integrated back into the Trinidad squad. It's so much so in the game in Trinidad against Bahrain, he struggled. And the biggest decision that Leo Benaka had to make was whether or not to play him in the return leg in Bahrain, and he didn't. And of course, we went on to qualify. And it's not taking anything away from Russell, but exactly what you're saying. He was not able to integrate. He was almost a liability for us, all due respect to him. And the reason why we were able to qualify is because Leo Benaka made that tough decision. Tapo Whitmore has to make those decisions. He has to make tough decisions and understand that the chemistry of the team, same thing I think, installing a mentality, that is more important than names. That is the most important thing. Understanding that this is the team that he truly believes could get him a result. And if you look throughout the team, you look when Jamaica was successful, there were certain things that were there. And I believe the likes, as I said, Watson and Grant in the middle of the park. I think Lowe and Mariappa has a great partnership and understanding. And I think Nicholson up front understands his role on the road. And those things you just cannot take away. And I think Tapper has to understand that and has to take away from all the noise from outside and start the team that will get the result for him.
Brent Sancho, good job as usual. Thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Good. So here's where my partnership and combination problem extends to. If this is 0-0, say up to 60-65 minutes, and then he has to make the substitutions. Usually, a coach makes substitutions at club football, which you watch week in, week out, and the team gets a lift from those substitutions. in these circumstances, those substitutions are highly unlikely to give the team a lift, because you're bringing players who would have an integration problem. Yeah? And so, unless it's a moment of brilliance from an individual, you're not going to get the impact you would expect from your substitute player. And so, chemistry, the lack of integration, and the instability of partnerships could be the biggest obstacles to the Reggae Boyz getting this result today. I hope they can conquer those things, but I have misgivings.
Yeah, I hope they can conquer it too. And before Lance jumps in, George, I take the point that you're making, but based on the interviews that we've been hearing, and hearing from coach and hearing from the players, they seem to have spent some time together. Not enough time as we would have wanted them to, but I hope that it's just enough to get the job done.
Yeah, a very, very important point that Brent just made, George and Mariah, about Russell Latapi and him being left out by Leo Binhacker, because right through the Caribbean, people think that Russell Latapi is a boss.
Yes.
And the coach made the brave decision in not playing him based on the chemistry and what he needed from the team on that occasion. I know that Javon Watson is a vibes man. He has chemistry with the rest of the team. They call him Aka.
Yeah.
And I've seen him interact with the players and so on, and I know the value of Javon Watson in a team setting, and Whitmore would consider that very heavily based on what Brent said in giving him a starting position. For me, I just don't think he has the quality or agility or the youthfulness at this stage to help this team in a big way. But I understand the point about integration and comfort level with the players around you. And Whitmore has a tough job. I wouldn't like to be in his position at the moment.
Still to come on the SportsMax Zone. Find out our picks for the SportsMax class moment. Yeah, that's during Interactive. Before that, though, Brazil have qualified for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. We'll discuss whether there's any significance to their early qualification. And in the NBA fight night, when the Pacers met the Jazz, Miles Turner and Rudy Gobert starting a scuffle that forced officials to toss 4 players. And on Saturday, watch Jamaica's Fraser McConnell race at the Nitro Rallycross event in Phoenix, Arizona, live on SportsMax starting 4 p.m. in Jamaica, 5 p.m. in the rest of the Caribbean. A man once said phonics. There you go, break time.